Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Mitzi Borromeo. I'm back to help introduce some of the sessions today. Welcome to another day of the Digital X ADB Summit. So yesterday was quite a packed agenda. We had a lot of learning sessions, a lot of information to take in, but really fascinating information that really pushes this agenda forward. So yesterday we tackled the theme of digital infrastructure, the role for development finance. So let's just do a quick review, look at some key takeaways and highlights from the different panel discussions yesterday. So the first one on building the digital infrastructure of the future, accelerating inclusive and climate positive digital transformation. We heard from the panel how ADB could support DMCs in mobilizing and shaping investment opportunities to advance their digital development goals through, of course, cross-cutting. We talked about different cross-cutting approaches or infrastructure investments. And it came up during the panel that it would be helpful to consider creating a digital economic zone, building upon data, research, and multi-stakeholder partnerships. So, of course, the importance of data could not be overstated. In the next panel discussion on ADB's Digital Transformation Action Plan, we saw how there's a huge opportunity in Asia to use technology to leapfrog, to improve life, to really uplift communities, which actually technology should be about, right? And that we must leverage tech for good. We also heard from this panel that we should think of this action plan as a game changer. We need a master plan, right? So we should think of this as value creation through a continuous digital transformation action plan. So it's not a one-off thing. We have to continue looking into this. And this is a constant message that we heard throughout the day yesterday. We also must ensure that AI is responsible, inclusive, and sustainable. So 3 key words there. We also heard from the panel that this requires a collective action from different stakeholders to identify the best solutions, the best policies, incentives to ensure the best technology serves society. So it's not an easy task. In the learning session on the promise of digital public infrastructure, exploring opportunities for adoption and scaling, we talked a lot about a mindset change, that this really requires being open to new possibilities, new ways of working, new approaches, and PPPs, public-private partnerships, are really critical in this endeavor. So we must develop PPP models that work. And of course, there's no one single right model, so we always have to look at the context, assess the problems, and then come up with the right framework. We also, some of our panelists also talked about the need to foster a homegrown tech startup ecosystem. So rather than rely on multinationals, it's good to also invest in our local talent. So that means it involves education, reskilling, upskilling, capacity building. So we need to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem, and there are many models to learn from and a lot of studies out there. And a very interesting panel discussion on Earth observation, national spatial data infrastructure. We talked about harnessing the power of geospatial information, which has a lot of socioeconomic values and benefits. So it came up at this panel that to address the digital divide, we must create ownership of the digital tools and skills. So, and one of the perspectives here is that open source can help. This is something for ADB to explore, to bring to different DMCs. And the final panel discussion yesterday on cybersecurity and data privacy. I guess this is something that's a big concern, of course. We see this all the time in the news in a highly connected world where cities are growing or digitally enabled. Cybersecurity, of course, is becoming more and more critical. So not just for development, but also for the survival of cities. And we all know we're all vulnerable. The more we put ourselves out there, the more risks we have. So we need to protect our data, identify and detect threats, and respond to and detect cyber attacks. So we need to adapt to an evolving cyber world to protect digital assets and networks. And again, it came up that we need to have this mindset change to have new results. We need to change outdated policies. We must have control over digital assets and systems. We need to build a strong cybersecurity culture where everyone has a role to play. So those are just a few highlights. There were many things that we learned, but as you can see, we covered so much ground yesterday, and we'll do so again today. So from yesterday's theme, digital infrastructure, we focus today now on data driving digital development. And we begin with a panel discussion on artificial intelligence and data analytics, development impact, emerging solutions, and governance. for DMCs. To introduce this session, let me call on Byung-Jo Kong, who's technology specialist focusing on data analytics and big data at the Digital Technology for Development Division of the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Department. I'll hand you over to Joe now.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's session on AI and data analytics. And before we proceed, I would like to inform everyone that Undersecretary Rafael Dita won't be able to join us today due to an urgent meeting that conflicts with our timing. So I'd like to ask your understanding on that. And with that aside, I would like to start by highlighting the transformative nature of our times. We are currently experiencing a significant transformation due to technologies like AI and data analytics. And like any powerful tool, AI brings tremendous benefits and as well as associated risks. So it is very important for us to understand about this technology in order to harness the advantages, but also to handle safely and responsibly of this technology. And especially for ADB, it's very crucial to understand this to help our DMC countries to harness the power of AI while managing the risk that is associated with this technology. So our main objective for today's session is to provide a comprehensive understanding of the role of AI and data analytics. We are going to touch on very different spheres, from governance to education, and also to discuss the potential benefits and risks associated with their widespread adoption. And just to give you a brief introduction to the session structure, we'll begin with an introduction of our esteemed panelists. This will be followed by insightful presentations and speeches from each of our panelists, sharing their expertise in the areas of AI. And then in the last half of the session, we will engage in a panel discussion. We'll be delving into different thematic segments, and hopefully this discussion will shed a light on the multi-dimensional aspects of the AI. So with that, let me introduce our moderator of the session, Professor Ramaya Krishna from Carnegie Mellon University will be our moderator for today. Professor Krishna is also the Dean of Haynes College of Information System and Public Policy at Carnegie Mellon University. And he has been a faculty member at CMU since 1988. And he has founded multiple research centers at CMU and is the faculty director of the Bloch Center for Technology and Society. He advises governments and public-making organizations on technology policy and the deployment of data-driven policymaking. And he is an advisor to the president of the Asian Development Bank and is a member of the George Tech Commission of the Atlantic Council. And as you can see from his impressive profile, Professor Krishna brings a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we are honored to have him lead the dialogue. So without further ado, Professor.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be with all of you to address this important topic. I'm really honored to be moderating this panel with four awesome panelists. I think as you've been hearing about AI over the last the day of yesterday, there was a bunch of sessions that already have spoken about AI. I think the interesting questions is not so much what potential AI has, and of course that would be something good to hear about, but when there are applications that are deemed to be high risk, which sometimes may be high reward as well, how do you best govern those? Is responsible AI a source of comparative advantage to firms and nations, or is it a drag on innovation? These are the sorts of topics you sort of want to get into, because often you think about AI as being a technology that not only should benefit efficiency and effectiveness, but equity as well. And one needs to keep in mind that the responsible use, the trusted use of these technologies can actually serve not only broad societal goals, but at the same time create trust in the technology. So for instance, if you look at the latest Gallup polls about how citizens view AI, they view AI with a range of concerns. On the one hand, is it going to take my job? Is it something that actually is going to help me? Or is it going to affect our democracy because of misinformation and disinformation? Those are some of the fears. But at the same time, if you look at something like Khan Academy and its use of AI in helping kids learn, that sort of is a great demonstration project of the potential of the technology. And I think as one thinks about how to address this in a balanced way, keeping in mind both the opportunities as well as the risks, and how one thinks about this as not a one-size-fits-all, but have a more nuanced understanding of which applications. For instance, if you make a wrong recommendation of a movie on Netflix, no big deal. But if there's a wrong diagnosis in healthcare, there's a huge cost associated with it. So you can't treat Netflix recommendations in healthcare the same, much like you can't treat autonomous vehicles in Tesla and its issues and its advantages in the same way that one thinks about how one deals with the allocation of scarce resources like in hiring or in housing. So this is a fascinating space, and I think I'm looking forward to learning as much from the panelists that we're going to have here today. We have 4 amazing panelists. I'm going to do a very brief introduction because I don't want to take time away from what they have to say, because if I were to really give an introduction, I might use up a good bit of the time we have dedicated to the session. First, we have Ms. Jasmine Begum, who's the Regional Director, Legal and Government Affairs at Microsoft, who's here from Kuala Lumpur. Maybe the panelists can, as I call them, can come up here and join me. Jasmine, please come up here and join me. A round of applause for Jasmine. Eunice Wang from Google. Is Eunice here? Remotely. So that's another amazing thing about this conference. You get to people zooming in as well as being here in person, and you can be the judge of whether there's a difference. And we have Erika Legura from the Asian Institute of Management. Erika, come on up. And then Stephanie C. from Thinking Machines. So I kept the introductions very brief because I want to give them as much time as possible to address us. And as Joe mentioned, we're going to kick things off by having each of the panelists offer remarks. And I'm going to request them to go in the order that I introduced them. So we'll have Jasmine go first, then Eunice over the network, and then Erika, and then Stephanie. And I'm particularly pleased that we have 4 women on this panel. So another round of applause for that. All right, so without further ado.
Good morning, and thank you, Prof, for the kind introduction. Well, let us start by looking at the economic power of AI. And I just want to state some of these bold numbers. Globally, we are expecting that AI will add 15 trillion to the GDP, 1 trillion to the Southeast Asia economy, and almost 100 billion to the economy it will add to the GDP in Philippines. So just setting this context. And I know that we usually talk about AI and we talk about responsible. Oh, thank you so much. I was thinking there will be some magic that the slides will change with my voice. We haven't gotten there yet. Okay, right. And we think about these numbers, and maybe 5-6 years ago when we talked about AI, the biggest challenge we always thought about is this job losses, how robots are going to take away jobs. And that is one conversation. But today, suddenly, in 6 to 7 months, we are introducing prompt engineering in universities. Unheard of. Why this shift, right? And we want to explore that today. So I'm hoping that technology will not let me down. Yes, thank God for that. You know, for someone who works at Microsoft, I'm technophobe. Don't know how I do my job, but yes, so I have this deep fear that technology will break, so it's important that I put it out there. So as we think about the world today, um, innovation occurring at a very rapid pace. And I was just talking to some colleagues outside that, you know, governments still look to develop master plans, 5-year development plan, 10 years roadmap. They would have started 2 years before in developing these master plans and development tools, development documents. By the time they complete this roadmap, the technology has moved so far ahead that you know these documents can be rendered quite futile. So one of the things we talk about when we talk about this rapid development and artificial intelligence and technology, developmental technology, we want to think about two things. One, digital for development and how it is impacting our society. And we talk about digital development in a very broad, enabling, technology enabling and advancing, but it's critical that we also think about digital for development. And we recognize that the way the world today is almost entirely connected. And I was just telling someone, you know, I was born in a disconnected world, and today the generation is entirely connected and they are not familiar with the concept of being disconnected. And as governments transition from analog government to e-government to digital government and GovTech, they are also competing to provide better citizen services, especially in an environment that GovTech is changing the way they render citizen services. And today, that is what it is. Instantaneous citizen services, technology enabling it, and we recognize that. So the pace of innovation, the question is, is this how we started? Remember, getting annoyed with WhatsApp when it autocorrects, especially if I'm writing something in Bahasa Malaysia, and it will correct it because it's trying to write it in English, and that is the most simple form of AI, right? That it learns and it thinks that it's making this autocorrect. But today, what we see is how it's changing, how we are seeing digital infrastructure is not just about making sure you have connectivity and you are able to access your email, but how you are serving and making that huge difference. And generative AI has been in the center of that. We do see that, especially, I was talking about generative AI, no one was talking about ChatGPT. That was where the conversation starter was. Is it all about that part of the conversation, ChatGPT? But the fact of the matter is AI has been around for a long, long time, but what is the difference now? And I think the person who did the summary from yesterday talked about the importance of data. And with data and large language models, we are able to now see the space of innovation, whether it's healthcare or smart economic hubs, or even education, how it is changing the entire landscape. Technology drives economy, and I started out by saying how much it's contributing. And as we look at digital economy, we know that governments have now put up bold ambitions, 60% of GDP from digital economy for Indonesia, 20 to 40% of GDP across governments in ASEAN. And this was now not how we saw technology. We always looked at technology as an enabler, not an economic driver. But today, we have an opportunity to shift the conversation and talk about technology driving economy. And actually looking at another element to this is the talent piece. We talk about the lack of talent, and when we talk about AI, the first conversation, the first point that we raise is loss of job, unemployability or underemployment. But the fact of the matter is we have talent. there is talent, there is no talent gap. What we have is a skills gap. And how do we address the skills gap? Okay. So bringing that to the fore, I think is going to be critical in setting the conversation today. Which then talks about how is AI being embedded, right? And these are some numbers. 31% of virtual agents. We are looking at all of these numbers, 23% of using computer vision, 32% natural language text. And we understood yesterday that there are agents now who speak Tagalog, bots that speak Tagalog that was introduced by PLDT. It was interesting to see how much this is being able to improve engagement with customers. And this is a fact that we are seeing, right? How is it accelerating and how is AI being adopted? And it's not just about the consumer-facing tools and how it's changing the entire landscape, whether it is the legal landscape or it is copywriting. Things are being adopted and we see the numbers are growing at a trajectory that we have not seen before. And there is expectation, right? Societal expectations are increasing. And this is also because the level of connectivity. And as digital infrastructure gets built out, we do recognize that it's critical that we look at how we protect privacy, how data is being used, and what kind of security guardrails are we putting in place. I think that comes back to Prof's point about responsible AI. It's not about impeding innovation, it's about ensuring that you are driving competitive advantage to the nation. So, of course, governments are regulating AI in response. And why is this critical? I think it's critical for us to look at international standards. It's critical for us to understand why this is important. And it's most importantly, it is critical that we recognize the model behind it, what's driving it. I think there's still a lack of, understanding on both the potential and why it's important that we put guardrails in place. So how do we do this in Microsoft? It goes back to 2016 when we started and how we take a responsible AI journey. And for us, we look at principles. And it has been a journey for us and we continue to build on this journey. When we introduced our governing AI blueprint, we talked about what kind of a 5-point blueprint for governing AI. Ethics and integrity in the center of it is going to be very critical. And bringing principle to practice, principles that are not being able to be translated into operationalization and to be brought into practice are not going to serve the purpose. We work with governments across the globe to ensure that they understand how this is being regulated and what kind of models are being used. So this is our principles, and I think these are universal. It's not just about Microsoft doing it, but across the globe we do see this as foundational principles in ensuring that the adoption of AI is done in a responsible manner. And we look at recognizing the AI governance framework, and this is how we do it. There's auditing, monitoring, reporting, and compliance. The responsible AI framework and policy and standards is something that we do by design. It's not something we build on, but actually by design. Our products and engineering that's driven in developing these tools are done with responsible AI as part of the design of the technology. And this is our ecosystem, and it comes both from the top, and there is responsible element that's being built out throughout the way the company is developing and driving this point of AI at this point. What we see as a difference is everyone looks at privacy and security as an integral part of driving this responsible AI, and safety and security are built in as part of these features as well. So as we look at responsible AI standard, the records and establishes it, we look at these rules as part of how we bring from principle to practice. And I think that is very critical. It's not about just having those principles, but making sure that we are we are reporting it, and we are holding ourselves and our partners responsible. I think this is how we look at the responsible AI standard, the four principles that we look at, the principles, the goals, requirements, tools, and practices. Those are enduring values. We definitely look at that. And what are the outcomes that we want to drive? And finally, what step we must take, and tools and practices. And these are being introduced, and we are building on this work every day. It's not a one point in time. It's something that we continue to build on. So this is where the job of our roles, right? Especially those of us who are in the legal department. We talk about public policy shaping the AI regulation. We work with governments, we work with regulators, we work with the academia, we work with think tanks, and we work with international organizations to ensure that it's a progressive regulatory environment, but also ensure that as we build these guardrails, we also ensure that the skilling is done, and we ensure that we have introduced the AI fluency program that has been introduced even this part of the world. We've also gone out to discuss with governments on the digital economy and AI economy. And finally, going forward, this is work that we'll continue to build on. Our approach is very consultative. We ensure that we bring in industry, we bring in academia, and we bring in it's a whole of society approach, and work with governments to advance this agenda. With that, I thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for the invitation. I'm so sorry I can't be there in Manila today with all of you, but really happy to be on an all-women panel this morning. I want to start by really asking a lot of what Jasmine said earlier. I think the fact is that AI has been around for a long time. AI is not new, and as you can see, Google. We have pivoted from really being a product company to being an AI first company since 2017. You see in this journey that we've taken, but back to the point about AI not being new, you actually have AI actually is embedded in all of Google's core products. From the first time that we've done search engines, to the products that you see today. If you've used Gmail, if you've used Google Search, if you've used YouTube, if you've used Google Photos, you see that actually it's all powered by AI, right? So Gmail, for example, AI-powered spam filtering capabilities. They block nearly 10 million spam emails every minute, and that's really because it's able to detect between what is likely to be spam and what is not spam. So you see across our products today that it has really been embedded in our products for a long, long time. What is new, as Jasmine mentioned just now, and what's been the cause of a lot of excitement recently is this thing called generative AI, right? With the rise of large language models that are enabled by a lot better compute power and also data. Jasmine spoke a little bit about this. We see the application of AI across many different sectors, many different public policy challenges that are actually really front of mind, right, for many people. Health, climate, cities, education, work. In Japan, for example, we've worked on technology that, because of data, is able to help to distinguish and read mammograms. So it can help to detect early signs of breast cancer. And that's really, you can think about the impact, right, for many, many generations of women who are now able to use the technology to be able to get early detection of possible cancer. When you look at Australia, for example, climate and the climate pillar, we have a project that helps with bushfire and help to discover wildlife that is still around by detecting animal sounds through AI. So I think that's really cool. What's the coolest, in my view, my favorite is this work that Google DeepMind has done on AlphaFold. So I'm not sure if you heard about this, but really, breakthroughs in disease research. AlphaFold managed to map the entire protein universe. And that's incredible if you think about it, the potential for that to treat disease, to help biologists speed up critical research. And the great thing is that AlphaFold has already been used to find a drug candidate for liver cancer, and been used to develop a molecular syringe that can help to more effectively deliver treatment for diseases. And what I think most mind-blowing is that what AlphaFold has been able to do, um, scientists have been working on for years, right? So there are some researchers that have used AlphaFold to uncover previously unknown details about, a key SARS-CoV protein, which will help to advance the development of COVID therapeutics. Um, the researchers have been doing it without success, but once they applied AlphaFold to this, it learned it within 15 minutes. So you see this code here. What took us months and years to do, what took scientists months and months and years to do, AlphaFold was able to do it in a weekend. And that's just really mind-blowing in terms of what potential it could unfold for medical research and disease research. Every day that I'm talking about AI, I get new examples. Yesterday, I just really want to share this. Yesterday, this thing came in, right, from DeepMind. Another significant breakthrough, right? So DeepMind yesterday, we released the Alpha Missense catalog that's generated using our new AI model. Now, okay, let me just explain this. So uncovering the root causes of diseases is sometimes really, really difficult, right? Because there are many, many different mutations. There's very limited experimental data. So it's still it's an open question, a mystery in terms of which genes could give rise to disease, right? So if you are able to categorize them in terms of the ones that are likely and ones that are likely pathogenic, it's able to help you focus diagnosis and develop life-saving treatment. So yesterday, what GBM released was a catalog of these mutations. They categorized almost 90% of all 71 million possible missense variants as either likely pathogenic or likely benign. By contrast, only 0.1% have been confirmed by human experts. So you can see what AI is able to do, in really compress a short amount of time that many human scientists and medical researchers have not been able to for many years. And the great thing is that all these predictions are now we've made them freely available to the research community. We've open sourced the model code for Alpha Missense. And this is really, I think, going to be quite life-changing in terms of, helping to develop more acute treatments for diseases. But I think all this said and done, there are still a lot of concerns about AI, a lot of concerns about the risks and complexities. I think we need to acknowledge that. Hallucination of chatbots, how disinformation, misinformation could be amplified by generative AI. It's just going to be so much easier these days to create content, right? You just click the button and the thing comes out for you, in 10 different formats. Discrimination, fairness questions, I think are still, hotly debated. And I think, all these are real issues that need to be addressed. So I just want to talk a little bit about what Google has been doing, our approach to responsible AI. And you see here that, our CEO has been saying that really building AI responsibly is the only race that matters. How do we make sure that we capture all the benefits, all the opportunities, all the amazing things, right? Like AlphaFold, Alpha Missense, while mitigating the possible risks that could arise from that. And in my mind, I categorize it into 4 P's, right? The first is principles. The second is processes. The third is product/technology. And the fourth is policy/partnerships. So let me go into each of it quickly. So here you see Google's AI principles, right? So robust internal principles that we have set out in 2018, one of the first to set out these principles, stating very clearly what we think AI should be doing. So it should be socially beneficial. For example, it should incorporate privacy design principles, and what we will not pursue, right? So what any technology that likely to cause overall harm, any technology that has to do with surveillance that infringes international norms, we will not pursue. So this has been our North Star. And we have been applying the AI principles into every AI development in the company. So from the design of the product to really when we think about how regulation should be done, these are our North Stars, right? These are our guiding principles that permeate, I think, throughout the work of the company. Here also, I think in terms of processes, I'd like to just show you very robust internal structures and processes to review AI and to govern AI within the company. So you see that there are many layers that a product has to go through before it's launched in the market. So whether it's dedicated functions in product, for example, if it's a cloud product, it has to be reviewed by cloud council. Then it goes up to a central innovation review committee, health ethics committee, and then an advanced technology review council, where you have not just engineers but also ethicists, people who are very strong in public policy as well, law, privacy. It all comes together in the ATRC, and that's where decisions are made before it goes out to the public. It's also, about keeping ourselves accountable. So every year since we've put out our AI principles, we've produced these updates about what we've done. And these are really interesting reports. I encourage you to take a look. But it will show you basically how we've applied our principles to our work in Google on AI product development. And it also shows you actually that there were some products that we developed that we decided not to launch because they did not meet the threshold that we set ourselves according to our principles. This is just an example. Bart, our chatbot, basically, how we applied some principles. So for example, on privacy, we make sure that there are always user controls and that users have full control of when their bot activity is enabled, how long the history is stored for, and the like. On transparency, you have in clear language, what kind of data Google collects, how it's used. Is it used for training? Is it not used for training? And also on safety, there are age restrictions on the usage of BART. So it has to be a signed-in Google account experience. So only 18 and over you can use BART, because I think given the concerns of chatbots and we think that it's important that people have a certain level of maturity before they are able to use these technologies. They're still very nascent. The other area I wanted to talk a little bit about is really about product, right? So what we have with BART, and here also, putting in technologies in our product that are able to help counter some of the challenges of generative AI. So, we talked earlier about, how Gen AI content can sometimes be used by bad actors, or even, unintentionally, right, to spread false information. So recently, Google DeepMind and Google Cloud, we launched this technology called Synth ID. It's a tool for watermarking and identifying AI-generated images. And you can see, it embeds a digital watermark directly into the pixels of an image. So as you can see from the image here, you can't really tell, right, that it's actually watermarked. But it's detectable for identification, right? So it's technologies like that, I think, that are going to help us build further trust in AI and be able to drive more beneficial adoption of AI. And finally, partnerships, right? So I think we've said for the longest time that we think AI is too important not to regulate. And so, we've been participating in a lot of these governance discussions and debates. The White House, as you may be aware, had launched these voluntary commitments in July, and Google and Microsoft as well, and some other tech companies have signed on to these voluntary commitments. Within the industry as well, you see the bottom right, Google, Anthropic, Microsoft, OpenAI, we've launched the Frontier Model Forum. It's really focused on AI safety for frontier models. And so I think the more that industry players can come together to set standards, the better it will be for promoting trust in these models. And finally, just two last points. We also, are very, very strong believers of working together with others. So we did launch this Visual Future project about 2 weeks ago, actually a week ago. We put 20 million through a Google.org fund to work with think tanks, support researchers to foster debate on public policy solutions on responsible AI. So this will provide grants to think tanks, academic institutions to facilitate dialogue and inquiry into this important technology. And finally, skilling. Also, we have rolled out skilling programs free of charge on generative AI. So whether you're mid-career looking for a career switch or you're just wanting to learn more about generative AI, these are free programs that are available online that will help, I think, solve exactly the skilling problem that Jasmine talked about, right? The problem is not talent, it's skills. And so the more we can roll out these things, the better it is, I think, to uplift both in terms of knowledge and in terms of skills, and eventually promote trust in the use of this technology. So I'll end here and happy to go into greater detail into any of these topics.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eunice.
Morning, everyone. Just gonna wait for my yes. Thanks to Joe and Arndt for inviting me to talk about bridging the AI education gap in developing countries. I'm with the Asian Institute of Management. Oh wow, now you can see it. So, giving when I was asked to give this presentation, of course, I had to look at our performance in terms of education, not even talking about AI education, just education, period. And you can see here how dismal, the Philippines, especially in particular, have been performing. So in the Global Knowledge Index, we're at 77 out of 132. And if you look at the individual dimensions of this, if you look at, for example, R&D or higher education or enabling environment, it's much worse, right? And that's just education. And then if you go to the Global AI Index, there are really awesome companies like Thinking Machines. But if you look at the country as a whole, we're not even ranked in terms of AI. So if you look at this one, you have at the bottommost would be Kenya in this particular ranking, but Philippines is nowhere there. So it might look grim, but there are some bright spots. And this is something that I'm really, no, let me just go back. Yeah, excited about to share with you. The Asian Institute of Management's Master of Science in Data Science program is the first ever data science formal graduate program in the country. And since it's launched, we have actually been landing in the top 3 across Far East Asia in terms of analytics. This is from Ed Universal. We've also been awarded by the Times Higher Education in terms of technological innovation in education because of this particular program, and also by the AACSB, which is the gold standard when it comes to accrediting business schools. We got the Innovations That Inspire award, right? Because it's really a bright spot if you put that in the backdrop of the Philippines. So Joe asked me to maybe talk a bit about how we're able to do this. First, the vision was that of our president and dean, Kyung Kang, back probably earlier than 2016, because I joined them in 2017. They've been hearing a lot of talks about AI. Businesses, societies didn't know what to do, essentially. So the business school thought that this is something that we should be offering. But there were a lot of those that said that we are a business school, we shouldn't be offering AI in the first place. We should just leave it with research universities. That's where they were wrong, because you really need to bridge this gap. Because we might not admit it, but in most academia, the discussions remain in academia. You know what I mean? But for fields like AI and data science, it's super critical that we have a very close linkage with the industry, with the businesses, with the enterprises. So it did make a lot of sense to have the program with the AIM. So for Jikyang, the vision was to develop innovation and technology-oriented managers, leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, right, who will take the lead in transforming Asian business and society. So guided with that particular vision, when we were developing the program, we were really anchored on these 3 things. We were very intentional. it wasn't just looking at curricula from other universities like Berkeley, they were the ones who started it, NYU, but we really had to think about Asia and society, industry, and academia. In fact, when we were designing the curriculum, I was very much closely consulting with staff. We were like good friends way back, I don't know, like years ago, because I wanted the perspective of the industry. We wanted the perspective of the practitioners when we were designing the curriculum. And when we launched the curriculum, we got invited in various conferences, academia conferences, global conferences, because they were very curious how we're able to mix and match all of these things. And so these were the main catalysts, essentially. First, of course, it's very important to have practitioners in academia when we talk about data science and AI. But maybe that's a bit too much to ask. But at AIM, it worked because we have full-time data scientists in the institute. That's typically not something that you'll see in universities. But we do have practitioners, and the practitioners get to mentor data science students. Practitioners are critical in academia because they're the ones in touch with the organizations, right? And they get to be updated, and they are, in a sense, they help maintain the relevance of the program. Trained educators is another important factor, but we are actually facing a lot of challenge here, only because if you are a good practitioner, you can teach data science, algorithms, there's a lot of industry pressure pulling you away from academia, if you know what I mean, right? And of course, infrastructure is super important. We are grateful to Acer, Mr. Stan Shi in particular. He donated the fastest supercomputer in the country to AIM. So it's not even with our Department of Science and Technology, but if you look at other countries, you ask them, like, where's the fastest supercomputer? It would be housed in their national agencies, right? But in the Philippines, it's in a business school. Because we said, like, if you want to make this happen, if you want to train students to be adept at big data and cloud computing, you've got to have the infrastructure, right? So that's another ingredient. And of course, partnerships. We're very, very, very big on partnerships. The capstone projects that our students work on are from our partners, even the ADB. So we would be getting real world use cases, AI R&D driven, and it's a two-way collaboration. They get something from us, and our students also learn a lot about the real world data science projects. But highlighting these would also make you realize that these are also the same challenges that many academic organizations would face in training AI individuals. Practitioners, there's not much practitioners out there. Trained educators, yeah, even basic education. We don't have quality teachers. Infrastructure, just talking about the internet, right? There's a big inequality gap. You go outside of Metro Manila, then that starts to be a big problem. And finally, partnerships. It's very difficult to bridge academia and industry if your academics don't speak the language of industry and vice versa. It's not just about our language, but also our urgency with academia is like pushing the boundaries of knowledge, but with the industry, it's MVPs, right? Being agile, just a step or two forward with what we have, not really the cutting edge one. So there's that particular gap there that's still honestly difficult to crack. How we're gonna work on this one. Hopefully ADB will have some solutions here. But yeah, so I wanted to end here. So when I was making this slide last night, or this morning, sorry, it got me thinking. I thought, like, how can we, a nation that's really growing, even at the most foundational education challenges, even contemplate about AI education? Yet, if we don't embrace the future, right? Um, I don't know what will happen to our next generation in terms of the global landscape. So yeah, I leave it for later. Thank you so much and good morning.
Wonderful. Yes, I do. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm actually going to take a very different approach in the next 10 minutes. So my background, you've heard from policymakers, you've heard from educators, and now you're going to hear from an engineer. So my take on this topic was really thinking about what does it mean to have the heart of the heart of responsibility, the heart of keeping an AI model or software accountable is this concept of interoperability. If you have an AI model, you need to understand what is inside of it in order to govern it well. What I'd like to bring, this idea that I'd like to bring to the audience today is the idea that open AI consists of open data, open source models, and open methods. And I want to talk about two real projects that my team and I have worked on that hopefully demonstrate these principles in action with all their flaws as well as all that you can get from it. So I want to start from this idea that a data ecosystem allows us to make better, more human-centric decisions with data and is accountable, is something that you can start to look at from a privacy, security, regulatory standpoint. I really quite like this framework, which is a data framework. I think I actually got it from the ADB maybe 6 or 7 years ago. So if you are trying to work between public sector, private sector, and civil society, you need to have a way to, you use data as a data ecosystem to be able to have collaborative decisions, effective decisions, efficient decisions, equitable, timely, and transparent decisions. When you're arguing over a policy, when you have an educator, a policymaker, an engineer, all sitting at a table together arguing about what decision do we make, when you have data that everybody understands, you're much faster, you're much more able to make good decisions. The whole point of data is you need to do something with it. Data in itself has no value. People sometimes talk about data as oil. Oil doesn't have value unless you're using it. And I think data is very much in the same vein. So taking this concept to machine learning, right? I have a philosophy that machine learning models built not by the Googles and Microsofts of the world, that's much more of a software as a service kind of world. I'm talking about machine learnings that are built in DMCs, built by the ADB or built by government agencies that are meant to be reused, need to be interpretable. And I believe that great AI models in this sector need to be low cost, things that you're funding maybe, right? They really ought to be low cost. You should not need to buy a supercomputer in order to do it. There is room, and don't get me wrong, people should be developing mega models on supercomputers, but it is very hard if you're a government agency and you have funding that runs for 2 years, and that funding runs out. What are you going to do with this model that only runs on a supercomputer? So the longevity, in order to have machine learning models with longevity, I really believe that smaller, low-cost models that are much more portable are what you ought to be targeting for funding in the $50,000 to $100,000 kind of grant range. I believe in AI models that are globally replicable, so methodology that can be easily replicated across different countries, particularly in Southeast Asia. We do have a lot of nuances in our country-specific data sets, but I think we have more in common than we don't. So having replicable data sets across different countries really works. And lastly, when I think about machine learning models, I also think about not just the science, but the engineering and deployment potential. So how easy is it for a scientist to build an AI model and to be able to hand it over to a software engineer who works at the Department of Energy who needs to deploy something in this next stage? One of the ways I've tried to make, my team and I have tried to make this a reality is through our machine learning web catalog, which we got some funding from UNICEF to build, to try to demonstrate and illustrate these principles in action. Our core philosophy here is to build the building blocks for 10 times more research happening in Southeast Asia. I'm going to talk about 2 of the 3 projects, the air quality PM2 prediction model, and the relative wealth mapping research that we did. These are machine learning models that abide by the principles of open data, open source, open methods. So for the PM2 model, monitoring air quality data is really critical. In many countries, on-the-ground data is really sparse. Ground stations are sparse, and in Thailand, they're all clustered in very specific areas. So we worked with the Thai UNICEF country office to try to train a machine learning model to fill in those gaps by predicting PM 2.5 levels based on satellite data, remote sensing data, using the existing data points as training data. And you can see the results of that model. So the model itself is less important than the fact that this is open source in terms of the code. The data acquisition code is open source. Our documentation on how to take aerosol measurements, weather, vegetation, population measures, and build a machine learning model from that, that's all open source, and we've shared the results as a common benchmark. Why is this really useful? This is not for the Thinking Machines team. This is for a bunch of Thai and Indonesian and Filipino master's degree students who are looking for a thesis project, who should not be spending 80% of their thesis time trying to write code that acquires aerosol measurements, that acquires weather measurements. And this is for them to be able to stand up their 4 posters, an Indonesian poster, a Philippine poster, a Malaysian poster, and a Thai poster, all next to each other, and know that it's apples to apples, because they're measuring the success of their models, how it performs against the norm, against a common benchmark. What I saw in many conferences that I've presented at, scientific conferences for machine learning models, is 3 or 4 different groups all trying to do the same kind of relative wealth index research and machine learning work, but we can't compare our work with each other because we use different data sets, we use totally different benchmarks, and so it's really hard to figure out, is this method I'm using better than yours in a quantifiable and interpretable way, and interoperable between each other. So the whole point of this research is to make those conversations at NeurIPS way, way easier for the scientists. Now for the Thai government, for the UNICEF country office in Thailand, what they're able to do with this is they're taking the actual output of this, right? This specific application, what is air quality like through the year in Chiang Mai, and take the actual predictions we have, and thankfully they came back and said, okay, this completely makes sense to us. I think this is accurate. We're going to bring this to the government to use as part of how they do air quality planning in Chiang Mai. The second model, set of models I'm going to talk about is the relative wealth estimates estimated by machine learning models that we built that cover 9 countries. So our goals here were to train interpretable machine learning models that can fill in spatial gaps and temporal gaps in household surveys. Are you familiar with the DHS, the demographic? There's a type of survey called the DHS that is pretty much the gold standard when it comes to international surveys covering, I think I have a slide explaining what the DHS is. No, perhaps not. It's a household wealth survey. This survey is of excellent quality, but it has spatial gaps, meaning some places are better represented than others, and it has temporal gaps, meaning it runs every 5 years, and it doesn't run in the same year in every country. So you want to be able to fill in those gaps with machine learning models. What we wanted to do was to take 4 countries in which DHS has run their surveys, Cambodia, Philippines, Myanmar, and Timor-Leste, take 5 other countries in Southeast Asia where their surveys were not run, and see if we can build a machine learning model that estimates wealth across all 9. We really wanted to improve, again, the access of technical resources for researchers, because wealth prediction is a really hot topic, really common, lots of use cases in both the machine learning academic sector, in the private sector. Everybody's trying to figure out where to build the next McDonald's, right? It's interesting, just a side note on the private sector. I've talked to quite a few companies about how they decide where to open their stores in. And I'm not going to say who, but it's just really funny to talk to one company and they say, we follow that other guy. Where brand A opens, we open ours within 100 meters. And then I talk to brand A and they say, well, wherever brand B is, that's where we open too. And I was just thinking, who starts this then? If you're just following each other, who's making the decisions here? Anyway, that's a bit of a side note. But the whole point of this machine learning web catalog is for every single one of these models, we share what we're calling model cards. Model cards that describe, as a key transparency tool to describe the trained machine learning model, which features contributed the most to the prediction that the machine learning model made. So this is called a SHAP visualization that you basically intuitively, right? The longer the line, the more impact that particular feature had on the wealth prediction. So really fun to see that the mean number of devices, this is the mean number of mobile devices that we can detect in a region, actually is like a huge indicator of relative wealth. Fast food, the presence of fast food is also funnily enough, like a pretty strong indicator if an area is like becoming wealthier or not. And this is all using open data, right? So we want models that people can easily replicate. So sometimes there is a lot of value to closed data sources, but from the purposes of replicability and responsible measurement, using open data that is findable, licensable across many different regions was our priority. So we focused on building these models on open data. Everything is open source, which means any bugs that I wrote are going to be embarrassingly available for everybody to see as well. But the nice thing about open source is, again, much more legible, much more auditable from the perspective of civic sector purposes. And open methods. So a lot of scientific papers will share their methods openly, but without sharing the code behind it, it's very, very hard to take that method and really bring it into the real world. And I think it's really the combination of the scientific papers, so we're co-publishing papers about this with the UNICEF team, taking those methods, making them open, connecting it to an open source code, and connecting it to open source, to open data sets, then makes it fully replicable by any citizen scientist, any single data scientist working like buried somewhere deep inside the Department of Trade and Industry. Typically you need like a full team working for a year to do something like this. But if you have open source, open data, open methods, basically that adds up to open AI, it makes this kind of work much, much faster to do, much, much cheaper to do, much more transparent, much more actionable. And I think overall, to live in a world that is explainable, I don't want to live in a black box world where AI manages everything for us, right? So I think to have that level of explainability is incredibly important for governance. Like, this is what it feels like and looks like to me, good governance, as a working professional and engineer. So hope that was a very different take on this whole topic of AI governance. And if any of you are software engineers, data scientists yourselves, please do hop on our repo. Let me know what you think. This is all about iterative work in progress. We're going to continue to invest in building on these models, keeping this updated. We're working with a lot of students right now. It's funny, our two biggest audiences for this work are master's students. Some of, I think, the AIM students are using this. And interestingly, single people who are data scientists who are working on small teams, so country offices where there's only 1 or 2 data scientists, or government departments where there's only 2 data engineers, they find this kind of work incredibly useful to accelerate what they're doing. And so I think that I hope to see a lot of value, and I hope to be validated in this approach to OpenAI. Thank you.
So thank you for that really excellent overview, and thanks for talking about shapely values, which is really nice to hear in a panel discussion about the explainability being explained in models with weights. So, folks, the diversity of presentations I think was phenomenal, because we had Stephanie as an engineer talking about approaches to addressing and using AI, and interestingly, not using generative AI, but using models, low-cost models, open source models, and models that are actually deployable with a lower footprint than, say, the larger models that you've been hearing a lot about more recently. We had Erica speak about the education skill gaps and how AIM is rising to the challenge here. she also made a really interesting point about the compute infrastructure and how that actually resides at AIM. And there's an interesting question about what this region needs by way of compute infrastructure, what kind of public goods need to be made available in that space, and the role for a bank like ADB to support activities like that. And then we heard from Eunice and Jasmine from about their focus on going from policy to practice, and Eunice talked about Synth ID. I'd love to hear her thoughts on why Synth ID is not part of C2PA, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, as to the provenance and watermarking standards that are emerging, and the need for a consistent standard with regard to content and watermarking, because I think that's a very critical issue as we think about understanding and letting citizens know what is AI generated and what isn't, and what that then also means for democracy. With elections around the corner, there's a lot of concern about the kind of content that AI could produce. So really excellent set of presentations. I know there are a lot of questions. Joe, we started late, so I'm going to go until 10:40. So I'm going to go 10 minutes past. Okay, so we have 20 minutes. So I'm going to kick things off with one question, and then hopefully there are others in the audience that have. So Stephanie spoke about the needs of the Asia Pacific, and Jasmine and Eunice, you spoke in broad terms about what Microsoft and Google are doing. What might be the best way for the Asian Development Bank, as well as for DMCs, to be informed about, and gain awareness about what the state of the technology is, what the capabilities are, what kinds of problems can it tackle? Right now, if you talk to a policymaker in a government, they don't have that coherent understanding. So can each of you provide some thoughts on how you at Microsoft or Google, or what Stephanie is doing, or what Erica's doing, how do we best inform governments, industry about what the capabilities are, realistically? Not that it can solve anything, which is oftentimes the view is that any problem, AI is there and it can solve it, but something more realistic of what it is that AI can do, what it can't do, and what the capabilities are.
Thank you, Prof. I think in approaching this, what is it that it can solve, or what is it that we want?
And for this region.
Right, for the region specifically. I think the foundational question is the digital infrastructure, because the underlying driver of AI is digital infrastructure, and what that nation wants to achieve, and how they want to drive that outcome. So in approaching this question with governments, the most pertinent question that comes back to us is the question of talent. What will happen to our talent? How do we now prepare a talent that is ready to augment human ingenuity and to drive that change, right? A lot of the issues that's raised with us, and as we talk to them, is, of course, we talk about skilling and the opportunity to skill the people in this region, also because of the large youth population that we have. That is a known element, and I think across the board, different technology companies are offering up, including Google, Microsoft. We are offering up this skilling, and how can this be addressed in budget cycles? Governments are struggling to see how do you look at national budget and how do we address this gap. So this is a conversation we are having. The second part is the regulatory environment. Different countries are at different stage of regulatory and policy maturity. And for them to leapfrog in some areas, especially in areas like cybersecurity laws and privacy laws or privacy regulations, there is a need for some of these governments to advance, to leapfrog, and to relook at how they are addressing some of these issues within these existing framework. And the third part is, how do we now shift from a very static legal and regulatory environment to a more agile regulatory environment? I think that's where one of the challenges that has come back to us is that policymakers were not trained to make digital policies. Policymakers were trained to make analog policies, and here we are trying to force-feed some of these. And what does guardrail versus impeding innovation, that fine line where we need to address between ensuring that there are guardrails but also ensuring we are not impeding innovation, and that those are some of the issues that are being raised, and we are working with governments to address exactly those concerns, ensure that there are no biases that are built in, whether it is in a financial sector, healthcare sector, education sector. I think it's not a single brushstroke. You know, we need to be very nuanced. We need to understand the culture, the values of the society, and this is a question that always comes up. Is it the Eastern value or the Western values, right? What does it mean? How do you make sure that it makes sense to that country? So to answer your question, Prof, how do we have this conversation? It's not that we have all the answers, and it's not that one where the private sector can solve or the public sector can solve. I think it is a learning process, but one where we need to be agile and be iterative about it. It's not a one solution that will solve and resolve all and provide all the answers, but I do think it's an iterative process.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. Eunice, I just want to make sure that I include you in this. Do you have thoughts and comments to offer?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the question of how we inform policymakers and, you know, sort of the public sector officials on what's going on. To be honest, the pace of development is so fast these days, right? Like every couple of months, there are new features that come up in our products. BART, for example, just had introduction of a Google button, the G button, where you can actually double check BART's responses. So there are these new things that are happening. What I spoke about, alpha makes sense, is another that are like coming up. The pace of these things coming online is incredible. So even us internally within the company, we are also struggling to keep pace with all the different developments. But I think how we can work with the ADB is a very key part of this, right? So when you convene your DMCs, I think it will be helpful to have sessions where industry can come in, explain what's the latest, what is happening in terms of research, and also introduce some case studies. So for example, some projects that we're doing in Indonesia on, we're doing this project with Indonesian Jakarta Transport Agency to optimize traffic lights to reduce traffic jams, right? So these kind of solutions could be applicable across different markets, developing markets in Asia with similar problems with traffic and congestion. So I think that open channel of communication, of education, would be very, very helpful to help governments understand the latest in terms of AI development.
Thank you, Eunice. Erica?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Test? Yeah, I actually agree with you this as well. It's more on the knowledge sharing aspect, like, because the question was how do we let them know that this exists. In fact, like the work of TM is really amazing, right? And more organizations and institutions have to be aware of that. There has to be a channel. I think that's important. Awareness is also another one. For example, in enterprises, what excites them or scares them would be knowing that the other people are doing their competition would be doing something similar. But I think this will be much healthier for knowledge sharing when it comes to policy making. Just having, I don't know how difficult it would be. We talk about data governance, we talk about AI governance, having a repository or a catalog or inventory of awesome stories, like what Google, Microsoft, and TM have, what we do at AIM, all of these things. I think they also inspire as well to come up with predictive questions, because I think some people forget that there was this book that the economics of AI is really on its prediction. So if there's something that you want predicted, maybe, just maybe, data analytics and AI would have something to offer. Yeah.
I think that the question is also a bit funny because we don't yet know everything that AI is capable of or not capable of. Even within the industry, like I definitely think all four of us wake up every morning and we think, oh my God, like we check our emails, like wow, there's like 5 more new things I have to learn today. So even within the field of AI, there's different specializations in computer vision, in generative AI, in this type of statistical modeling, and even within generative AI, right? The frontier of what can a Llama 2 generative model do versus what it can't do. Can it do math? To what extent can it do that? We haven't even answered that question to our own satisfaction. I really think the approach to it is very much like a scientific forum approach. It's very much the conference approach. It's not an approach of a bunch of experts trying to tell you X is possible, Y is not possible, 10-year master plan for AI research. It's really much more in the spirit of collaborative conversations on inspiring ideas and challenging each other. So I think forums like this do make sense, and engaging non-AI people as equals and peers, and them thinking about themselves also as, what do I need? Innovation always comes from problems. People have problems, so if they bring their problems, yeah, bring your problems. In these types of forums, I think that's always been the most productive way to keep each other updated that I've seen.
Thank you, Stephanie. Can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me. Okay. You made the point that we don't have complete understanding of these models. I agree with you. But yet there are the Llamas, Llama 2s out there, ChatGPT is out there, Bard is out there, and people are using it. And there are questions about, is there a need for a better understanding of how reliable these tools are? And therefore, would you, as you think about both providers of these technologies as well as consumers, how might we best straddle this, on the one hand, the opportunity, but at the same time ensure safety, I guess? You want to take that first?
I have a really strong opinion. I think
we'd love to hear it.
I'm just full of strong opinions. This is why I'm not, I couldn't be in government ever. My very strong opinion is that we focus our time and energy on designing tests and that are well understood so that everybody has a good benchmark for how, because there's so many ways to train AI models, there's so many ways to use it, but when I think about how to, what makes sense for a cross-disciplinary group to spend their time on, everybody's heard of the Turing test, right? And now all these generative models completely pass the Turing test. Like I was talking to a friend who was talking about this Chinese company that had an AI boyfriend app, and the company was shutting down the AI boyfriend app, and she was really sad about this. And I was like, why? Why? You have a real boyfriend. Why do you have an AI boyfriend on top of that? Apparently, it was very convincing emotional support for her.
I don't want to discuss this. I don't want to go further in this direction. But yeah.
It is. My Chinese reading comprehension is not great, but she was showing me the text messages, and I was like, "This bar is low." Like this, the bar for boyfriends apparently is quite low. So if you need an AI to replicate your boyfriend, but maybe that's already way past the Turing test. But really, coming back to the point of a common test, one thing that pushed AI research in computer vision forward by a huge amount is this ImageNet dataset.
From Fei-Fei Li, yeah.
Yeah, from Fei-Fei Li, and frankly, I think it is completely underestimated to have a common data set that everybody can say, I am performing like X on ImageNet, Y on ImageNet. And I think if you design a test where in order to pass the test, the AI needs to be not biased against in the groups that you care about, because the test and policy designed by humans will drive how AI researchers and companies will build and govern their models. So I think that common test, and I know the Singaporean government has some AI initiatives that are building these like fairness tests. I think that for me is my strongly held opinion of where our time and energy is best spent, so that people can just go off and build AI models, and your methods might be different from my methods, but if I see how your methods perform on a benchmark that I completely understand, that will help us make decisions much more quickly.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'll come to you in a moment, Erica. I mean, folks, one other thing that I'd love to get comments on and then go to the audience because we have about 10 minutes left is, should there be the equivalent of a trust mark, an underwriter's lab like trust mark on the output side, or nutrition labels on the input side of what data went into those models? You talked about the boyfriend. Folks, you didn't know when you came here, you're going to hear about that app. But should there be nutrition labels and trust marks? Erica, please go ahead. You were going to comment.
So on the first one.
On the reliability issues, right?
Yeah, not on the boyfriend one, right? But no, definitely. I'm not so sure though how we can have a universal or a global benchmark for that one, but there is really that need.